Since 2011, a small circle of the world's wealthiest people have quietly bought citizenship, land, and shelter in one of the most remote places on Earth. They call it insurance for the end of the world. In rural Kansas, a decommissioned Atlas nuclear missile silo sits 200 feet underground. It once existed to launch weapons of mass destruction. Today, it holds 12 luxury condominiums. A pool, a cinema, a rock-climbing wall. This is the survival condo, and its owner says demand has never been higher. This is the survival condo, and its owner says demand has never been higher. Pandemics, climate volatility, political instability, artificial intelligence risk. For a certain class of person, the question isn't whether disruption is coming, it's whether they'll be ready. This isn't a conspiracy theory. It's a documented industry, and it's growing faster than most people realize. Mark Zuckerberg has spent years quietly assembling more than 2,000 acres on Kauai. He calls part of it a basement. Others call it something more. Every project in this story is real. Every price tag is verifiable. What's less clear is what it means when the people building our technology are also first to prepare for its collapse. In 2016, OpenAI's Sam Altman told The New Yorker he keeps guns, gold, antibiotics, gas masks, and a plot of land in Big Sur he could fly to. He called it prepping for survival. Altman has also said his backup plan, if a pandemic ever struck, was to fly with his friend Peter Thiel to Thiel's property in New Zealand. LinkedIn co-founder Reid Hoffman has estimated that more than half of Silicon Valley's billionaires now hold some form of what he calls apocalypse insurance. Golden visas, special citizenship approvals, investment funds that funnel capital into government-backed ventures. The paperwork behind the bunkers is, in its own way, as revealing as the concrete. Across Europe, Cold War infrastructure built to survive a war that never came has quietly found new buyers, private citizens, not governments. Not everyone building underground is a billionaire. Families across America's plains have lived this way for decades, long before Silicon Valley discovered it. Pandemic, financial collapse, climate disaster, civil unrest. Every scenario these buyers plan for has already happened somewhere, within living memory. What's being built here isn't just shelter. It's a bet that comfort and survival can be purchased in advance. In 2015, Peter Thiel bought this land at Dampier Bay. He became a New Zealand citizen after spending just 12 days in the country. No place, he said, aligned more closely with his vision of the future. The design, by the architects behind Tokyo's Olympic Stadium, is built to nearly vanish into the hillside. Local councils have pushed back for years. Thiel has not withdrawn the application. Larry Hall built his first survival condo for around $20 million. Every unit sold. His next project, a single-owner silo, reportedly asks $50 to $60 million per resident. Beneath a 400-foot mountain in Rothenstein, Germany, sits Vivos Europa One, a converted Cold War munitions depot billed as a modern-day Noah's Ark, with over 200,000 square feet of living space. In South Dakota, Vivos xPoint has converted more than 575 former Army munitions bunkers into a private shelter community built to house thousands. In the Czech Republic, the Oppidum calls itself the largest private bunker in the world, a Soviet-era facility begun in 1984, now reimagined as a 300,000 square foot underground estate. Switzerland took a different approach entirely. Swiss law requires shelter space for every resident over 370,000 bunkers nationwide. Most sit unused as wine cellars, just in case. Companies like Rising S Bunkers and Atlas Survival Shelters have quietly built an entire industry around custom, private shelters, some delivered to clients across the world. One shelter network says it installed a 300-person bunker in New Zealand in 2020. Another firm says it has delivered roughly 10 private bunkers to the country in recent years. Not everyone welcomes the buyers. Councils have rejected construction proposals outright. Conservation groups have fought to limit how much untouched land any one buyer can claim. Most of these properties are designed to be found by no one. What reporters have uncovered has come from planning documents, court filings, and the rare interview a builder agrees to give. The gap between these two worlds isn't hidden. It's just built to be easy not to notice. Some of the same people funding advanced artificial intelligence are also buying land furthest from population centers. It's a contradiction that hasn't gone unnoticed. Demand keeps climbing. Waiting lists keep growing. Every builder in this story says the same thing. They have never had trouble finding buyers. Above ground, these estates look like any other luxury property. What's underneath is the part almost no one gets invited to see. From the surface, most of these places are invisible. That's not an accident. It's the entire design philosophy. Every fact in this documentary has been independently reported. That's deliberate. This story doesn't need exaggeration. The reality is strange enough on its own. Most people don't have a hillside lodge or a converted missile silo waiting for them. Most people just lock the door and hope for the best. Not every shelter costs millions. Some cost as little as a garden shed and a determined weekend. The instinct, it turns out, isn't limited by income, only the scale of what it buys. This is part one of a real, documented trend. In part two, we go inside the specific projects reshaping how the ultra-wealthy think about survival and what they're willing to spend to buy it. Inside, it doesn't feel like an emergency shelter. It feels like an apartment. Until you remember, there are no windows and 200 feet of earth above your head. Self-sufficiency is the whole point. Filtered water, grown food, backup power built to run for years. Filtered water, grown food. The builders insist this isn't paranoia. It's a second home that happens to double as insurance. Whether that distinction matters may depend entirely on which side of the door you're standing. Some units, like the ones at Vivos Europa One, are designed by the same firms that outfit private yachts. Marble, polished wood, leather, built for people who never plan to feel like they're roughing it. At the Oppidum, digital windows simulate outdoor horizons that don't exist anymore. 200 feet underground. Even in a bunker, the design brief was never to feel like you're in one. At Vivos xPoint, owners buy the shell, a converted military bunker, and finish the interior themselves, spending anywhere from $25,000 to $200,000. To make it a comfortable home, Larry Hall's survival condo includes a medical center, a classroom, and almost as an afterthought, a jail cell, built for a community that expects to govern itself, if it ever has to. A pool with a water slide, a climbing wall, a 17-person movie theater. It reads more like a boutique resort, more than a standard doomsday shelter, which is exactly the point. Underneath the comfort sits genuine engineering. 9.5 feet of hardened concrete, blast doors, decontamination chambers built to process every resident, long after an emergency has passed. Every unit built at the survival condo has sold. The waiting lists keep growing. Demand, the builders say, has never once slowed down. The market for survival is booming. Some of these projects sell chambers before construction even finishes. Buyers, securing their place based on renderings, built entirely on renderings and reputation alone. It's a bet on the end of the world. What's being sold isn't just shelter, it's the feeling of control, that comfort and survival can be purchased in advance, while everyone else waits to see what happens. The price of peace of mind. In Switzerland, this same architecture has become mundane. A government-mandated shelter in most homes is simply where the wine goes, until the day it isn't. This is survival architecture, reimagined as a utility. Above ground, these estates look like any other luxury property. What's underneath is the part almost no one gets invited to see. A secret world built to stay that way. The estates remain private and heavily protected. From the surface, most of these places are invisible. That's not an accident. It's the entire design philosophy. To exist without being noticed, until they are finally needed. For some owners, this has stopped being theoretical. Reporting on the survival condo describes families using their units as second homes. Weekend getaways, not just emergency plans. Life as usual, 200 feet down. Some communities, like Vivos xPoint, are trying to build neighborhood life. Shared amenities, communal spaces, even a general store. Trying to normalize the abnormal. A neighborhood in a silo. Several of these facilities are structured as non-profits or associations, with boards, bylaws, and dues, a small, self-contained system of governance built for a crisis that hasn't happened yet. Rules for the end of the world. Every facility in this story was engineered around one question. What happens the day the surface stops being safe? A plan for the unthinkable. Whether that distinction matters may depend entirely. Most people just lock the door and hope for the best. Most people don't have a hillside lodge waiting for them. The need to feel safe. This story doesn't need exaggeration. The reality is strange enough. Every fact in this documentary has been independently reported. It's just built to be easy not to notice. The final word, goodbye for now. The gap between these two worlds isn't hidden. They have never had trouble finding buyers. Every builder in this story says the same thing. The finality of the ultimate exclusion. The end of the report. It exists quietly, on the other side of a gate most will never see. The signal has simply vanished. Every one of these places was built on the same quiet bet. What you make of it, comfort, caution, or discomfort, is up to you. The instinct isn't limited by income, only the scale of what it buys. They've simply said they'd rather not find out too late, that when the moment comes, it's better to already be inside. But an old human instinct, dressed up in 9 feet of concrete, the architectural manifestation of fear. Maybe that's the real story here, not a hidden conspiracy, a life spent quietly waiting for the future. Everything in this documentary is real, reported, and verifiable. A luxury retreat from the surface world. Most of us will never see the inside of one of these places. We'll just keep living up here, in the open, hoping the future. Demand keeps climbing. Waiting lists keep growing. For most of the world, none of this changes anything day to day. That money can still buy safety, no matter how deep you go. So here's the question worth sitting with. If the world above ever became too uncertain, and you had the means to disappear, would you go down? Two realities, one above, one below. Every project in this story shares the same promise. than to be standing at the gate. They are ready for absolutely anything, hoping and wishing for normalcy. It's a second home that happens to double as insurance. The market for survival is booming. What's being sold isn't just shelter, it's the feeling of control. That comfort and survival can be purchased in advance. Above ground, these estates look like any other luxury property, built for people who never plan to feel like they're roughing it. A stark reminder of the hard limits of power. The story is strange, and it is very real, of governance built for a crisis that hasn't happened yet. Buying the ultimate hedge against an uncertain future, with boards, bylaws, and dues, a small, self-contained system. A secret world built to stay that way, waiting silently until they are finally needed. From the surface, most of these places are invisible. Several of these facilities are structured as non-profits or associations, trying to normalize the abnormal. For some owners, this has stopped being theoretical. What happens the day the surface stops being safe? A government-mandated shelter in most homes is simply where the wine goes. Reporting on the survival condo describes families using their units as second homes. Every facility in this story was engineered around one question: a luxury 17-person movie theater, reading like a boutique resort. What they sell isn't certainty, it's the feeling of being ready. None of these buyers have publicly said they expect the worst soon. None of the builders claim to know exactly what's coming. The builders are preparing for never actually arrives. Living up here, in the open, waiting. Welcome back inside the real billionaire bunker economy. We start where the trend became public knowledge. A quiet lakeside property in New Zealand's South Island. The design comes from the architects behind Tokyo's Olympic Stadium. 11 rooms, a meditation pod, a theater, built to camouflage almost entirely into the hillside. In Concordia, Kansas, a Cold War-era Atlas missile silo has become the most photographed bunker in America. Its owner, Larry Hall, calls it the opposite of what it was built for. A medical center, a classroom, a jail cell, 5 years of stockpiled food, 12 units, all sold, ranging from roughly $1.5 to $4.5 million each. And then there's the largest of them all, a converted Cold War munitions depot beneath a 400-foot German mountain, built for the very top of the market. Vivos Europa One is billed as a modern-day Noah's Ark over 200,000 square feet. Individual chambers, reportedly priced around $5 million each. In South Dakota's Black Hills, more than 575 former Army munitions bunkers have been converted into Vivos xPoint, a private shelter community designed to house thousands, each unit customized by its owner. In South Dakota's Black Hills, more than 575 former Army munitions bunkers have been converted into Vivos xPoint. The Oppidum, in the Czech Republic, began as a joint Soviet-Czechoslovak project in 1984. Today, it's marketed as the largest private bunker on Earth, over 300,000 square feet, above and below ground. Switzerland never left this to the wealthy alone. Swiss law requires shelter space for every resident. Over 370,000 bunkers nationwide, most now used simply as wine cellars. Companies like Rising S Bunkers and Atlas Survival Shelters have built a quieter, more accessible tier of this industry. Custom private shelters shipped to clients across the world. Mark Zuckerberg has assembled more than 2,000 acres on Kauai. Local reporting describes an underground component to the compound. Zuckerberg himself has called it just a basement. Sam Altman told The New Yorker in 2016 he keeps guns, gold, antibiotics, and gas masks from the Israeli Defense Force, along with land in Big Sur he could fly to if things went wrong. Altman has also described having an underground bunker with its own air filtration system, and said many of his friends now do the same, calling guns, motorcycles, and gold coins no longer unusual among his circle. Reid Hoffman's estimate that over half of Silicon Valley's billionaires now hold some form of apocalypse insurance has been repeated across outlets for nearly a decade. No one in that world has publicly disputed it. One shelter company says it installed a 300-person bunker in New Zealand in 2020. Another says it has delivered around 10 private units to the country in recent years. Not every shelter is a mansion. In Britain, decommissioned Ministry of Defence-style bunkers have been repurposed into modest units, priced in the tens of thousands of pounds, connectable into wider hidden networks. Swiss-engineered compact shelters, built for small groups and designed to run off-grid for months, have entered the market too. Proof this trend spans far more than the ultra-wealthy. Back in New Zealand, not everyone has welcomed the buyers. Councils have rejected construction proposals outright. Conservation groups have fought to limit how much untouched land any one buyer can claim. In 2022, local authorities rejected Thiel's proposed hillside build, citing its impact on the landscape. He has not withdrawn the application since. Every one of these projects shares a philosophy. Self-sufficiency first. Filtered water, grown food, backup power, built to run for years without outside contact. The builders insist this isn't paranoia. It's a second home that happens to double as insurance. Whether that distinction matters may depend on which side of the door you're standing. Every unit built at the survival condo has sold. The waiting lists keep growing. Demand, the builders say, has never once slowed down. Demand, the builders say, has never once slowed down. Access to these places is tightly controlled. Even journalists who've toured the survival condo describe being escorted through multiple checkpoints before reaching the silo itself. From the surface, almost none of these places are visible. That's not an accident. It's the entire design philosophy. That's not an accident. It's the entire design philosophy. Several of these projects, the Oppidum among them, are still under construction, sold on renderings and reputation before a single resident moves in. There is no public directory of who owns what. Ownership is layered through shell companies, trusts, and holding entities, designed specifically to keep the buyer's name out of the record. Everything we know about this world comes from cracks in that privacy planning filings, court records. Everything we know about this world comes from cracks in that privacy planning filings, court records, the occasional builder willing to talk on camera. The same industries producing the risks these shelters guard against engineered pathogens, runaway AI, climate disruption. The same industries producing the risks these shelters guard against engineered pathogens, runaway AI, climate disruption, are, in several documented cases, funded by the exact people buying the shelters. It has simply learned to operate in plain sight. What unites every project in this story, Kansas, Germany, the Czech Republic, New Zealand, is the same underlying promise, that money can still buy safety, no matter how deep you have to go to find it. It has simply learned to operate in plain sight. What unites every project in this story, Kansas, Germany, the Czech Republic, New Zealand, is the same underlying promise. Money can still buy safety, no matter how deep you have to go to find it. Most people will never see the inside of any of these places. Most people just lock the door and hope for the best. The instinct behind all of this isn't limited by income. Only the scale of what it buys. Every facility in this story was engineered around one single, unspoken question. What happens the day the surface stops being safe? What happens the day the surface stops being safe? None of these buyers have publicly said they expect the worst to happen soon. They've simply said they'd rather not find out too late. They'd rather not find out too late. This is part 2 of a real documented trend. In part 3, we look at what's actually driving this, and the uncomfortable questions it raises about who gets to survive. Pandemic, financial collapse, climate disaster, civil unrest. Every scenario these buyers plan for has already happened somewhere, to someone, within living memory. Some of the same people funding advanced artificial intelligence are also the ones buying land furthest from population centers, building the future, while quietly preparing an exit from it. Sam Altman once described his social circle joking, half seriously, about how the world might end after a lab-modified strain of bird flu made the risk of an engineered pandemic feel suddenly real to him. Not everyone welcomes the buyers. Local councils have rejected construction proposals outright. Conservation groups have fought to limit how much untouched land any one buyer can claim. Most of these properties are designed to be found by no one. What we know has come from planning documents, court filings, and the rare interview a builder agrees to give. None of this is new. Governments built shelters for entire populations during the Cold War. What's changed is who's building them now, and for how few people. Switzerland's model shows the alternative universal shelter, guaranteed by law for every citizen and resident. It's the road almost no other country chose to follow. Reid Hoffman's estimate that over half of Silicon Valley's billionaires hold some form of apocalypse insurance has circulated for nearly a decade, unchallenged by the people it describes. Peter Thiel gained New Zealand citizenship after spending just 12 days in the country approved through a special ministerial exception, not the standard residency process. In 2022, local authorities rejected his proposed hillside build, citing damage to the surrounding landscape. He has not withdrawn the application since. The gap between these two worlds isn't hidden. It's just built to be easy not to notice. Reporters have spent years piecing this story together from fragments. A filing here, a leaked rendering there. No press office has ever offered the full picture voluntarily. Long before this became a billionaire trend, families across America's plains were already living this way, growing their own food, generating their own power, calling it simply a choice. What's being built isn't just shelter. It's a bet that comfort, control, and survival can be purchased in advance, while everyone else waits to see what happens. Every fact so far has been documented. What's harder to document is the feeling underneath it all that some people have simply decided the rest of us are on our own. Security at these sites isn't decorative. Multiple reported bunkers include armed guards, biometric access, and layered perimeter defenses that rival small military installations. Try to visit any of these places uninvited, and you'll get exactly as far as the gate. That's not an oversight. It's the point. The people who live nearest these properties are often the ones with the least information about them, and the most at stake if local land and water rights shift because of them. Researchers who study wealth inequality point to this trend as a symptom, not a cause evidence of just how far resources have concentrated at the very top. What unites every project in this story is the same underlying promise, that money can still buy safety, no matter how deep you have to go to find it. Some of the biggest projects, like the Oppidum, are still under construction, sold on renderings and reputation before a single resident moves in. There is no public directory of who owns what. Ownership is layered through shell companies and trusts designed specifically to keep the buyer's name off the record. This isn't a hidden industry anymore. It has sales teams, waiting lists, architectural firms, and press releases. It has simply learned to operate in plain sight. For most of the world, none of this changes anything day to day. It exists quietly, on the other side of a gate most people will never see. But the question this trend forces into the open is a simple one. When the people with the most resources start preparing to leave the rest of us behind, what does that tell us about what they expect to happen next? None of the builders in this story claim to know exactly what's coming. What they sell isn't certainty. It's the feeling of being ready for anything. Engineered pathogens remain, by most expert accounts, a low probability but high consequence risk, exactly the kind of scenario this entire industry is built around. Artificial intelligence risk sits in the same category, uncertain, debated, and taken seriously enough by some of its own builders that they've quietly prepared an exit plan just in case. Climate volatility needs no speculation at all. It's already reshaping insurance markets, migration patterns, and for a very small number of people, real estate decisions worth hundreds of millions of dollars. Every facility in this story was engineered around one unspoken question: what happens the day the surface stops feeling safe? None of these buyers have publicly said they expect the worst to happen soon. They've simply said they'd rather not find out too late. Most of us can't buy our way out of uncertainty. We just live inside it the same way people always have. And maybe that's the most honest thing. This story reveals the instinct to prepare isn't reserved for billionaires. It's just that billionaires are the only ones who can build a mountain around it. This has all been about why. Next, we finally go inside to see exactly what 200 feet of concrete and a few $100 million actually buys. This is part 3 of a real, documented trend. In part 4, the tour continues inside the vault, and the question worth asking before it's over: